quieter you become, the more they start to hear you. Ever noticed how the moment you stop texting, stop checking, stop reacting, they suddenly start to notice you again? Yeah, that's not a coincidence. That's power. My friends, let me tell you a hard truth. The more you ignore them, the more they feel it. Not because you're trying to hurt them, but because your absence speaks the very language their ego fears the most: silence. Hey folks, imagine this. You were once the sun in their sky, warm, constant, always there, and they wore sunglasses, barely noticed your light. But the moment you vanished, the skies went cold. No light, no warmth, just darkness. And now they miss what they once ignored. Because let's be real, people don't appreciate light until they've sat long enough in the shadows. This video isn't about being cruel, it's about being clear. You're not ignoring them because you're petty. You're ignoring them because you finally remembered who you are. You're not their toy. You're not their second option. You're not a doormat for someone's inconsistent emotions. You're a man with value, with direction, with peace, and peace doesn't chase chaos. Look, we've all been there, refreshing the app, wondering why they haven't texted back, playing detective on their story views, feeling like your worth is tied to whether they care. But let me break that illusion. Your value isn't up for negotiation. Not then, not now, not ever. The more you react, the more they control. The more you explain, the more you give away your power. But when you go silent, truly silent, not as a strategy, but as a reflection of your growth, something shifts. You stop being their emotional puppet and you become their mirror. And what they see in that mirror? The emptiness of their own choices. That's what hurts them. Not your silence, but what your silence forces them to confront. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And he was right. The moment you stop feeding their need for validation, you flip the script. You're no longer chasing. You're becoming. Quietly, strongly, fully. And yeah, they'll feel it. They'll scroll through your page, hoping for a sign. They'll throw out bait, a like, a vague post, a memory. But you won't bite, because you're not starving anymore. You're fed by purpose now, not attention. So let them feel it. Let them wonder. Let them sit with the silence they created. You don't owe them a performance. You owe yourself peace. If this hits home, drop a comment and write, "I choose silence." Let the world see your shift. And remember, my friends, stay grounded, stay focused, stay untouchable, stay with me. This is just the beginning. 1. Attention is currency. Stop giving it away for free. Where your attention goes, your energy flows, and what you give energy to grows. That includes them. Yes, the very person you're trying so hard to get over, the one you're watching from a distance, the one who once had your heart and now seems to have your peace too. But here's the truth, nobody wants to say out loud. Your attention is the most valuable thing you own, and you're giving it away like spare change to someone who stopped paying for it a long time ago. Imagine your attention as gold. Every look, every text, every like, every thought you spend on them. It's like handing over coins from your vault. At first, they'll take it gratefully, but over time, they expect it. Then they ignore it. Then they disrespect it. And suddenly, the gold you once gave out so freely is seen as sand, common, cheap, forgettable. That's what happens when you become emotionally available to someone who no longer values it. You become background noise. a song they liked once, but now skip without finishing. And that's when you start asking the hard questions. Why don't they miss me? Why don't they see my effort? Why do they act like I never mattered? But the better question, my friend, is this. Why are you still paying them with your attention when they've already left the store? They're not feeling your presence anymore because they never had to earn it. You made it too easy, and now, in your silence, they finally feel something. And it's not love, it's the loss of power. Because your attention wasn't just affection, it was control. And the moment you took it back, the game changed, the scales shifted, and they're no longer standing on solid ground. This is where most people fall apart, because ignoring them doesn't feel strong at first. It feels hollow, it feels like giving up. You want to say something. You want to remind them of everything you gave. You want to be seen. You want to be heard. But listen, that's not your real desire. What you really want is to feel like you mattered. And here's where it gets dangerous. You start performing again, liking their stories, posting something deep, sending a "hope you're well" text. But deep down, you know why you're doing it. You're trading your attention for significance. You're trying to buy back a feeling that should have never been sold in the first place. Seneca said, "He who seeks to please others will always be their slave." And my friend, that includes seeking the attention of someone who already knows you're watching. You don't win them back by showing up more. You win yourself back by showing up less, not in bitterness but in clarity, not in silence as a trick, but as a testimony to your growth. Because here's what they don't expect: your disappearance, not a dramatic exit, just a quiet, intentional withdrawal of your energy, and suddenly their world feels off. The notifications stop. The dopamine hit fades. The comfort of your presence vanishes, and they start to feel it, not because they miss you, but because they can't control you anymore. And that is the moment where your absence becomes more powerful than your presence ever was. Let me ask you this. Why are you still checking if they saw your story? Why are you hoping they'll text back? Why are you giving them rent-free space in your mind while you pay the emotional price daily? You're holding yourself hostage to a version of them that probably doesn't even exist anymore. And worst of all, you're starving your future just to feed your past. What if you redirected that attention? What if every time you wanted to check their page, you checked in with yourself instead? What if every message you almost sent you turned into a rep in the gym, a paragraph in your journal, a move on your goals? What if your attention became sacred again? That's the shift. That's the moment you become dangerous, not because you're angry, but because you're unavailable. Not because you're mean, but because you've grown. And when they start to feel that shift, when they can no longer predict you, no longer feel your eyes on them, no longer count on your reactions, that's when they feel you the most. They might not admit it. They might pretend they don't care. They'll post, smile, flirt, pretend they've moved on, but their ego will flinch every time you don't respond, every time you stay quiet. Every time you walk right past their bait without even noticing it, because now your attention is no longer free. Now your attention is earned, and for them, that price might be too high. This will not be easy. Let me say that again. This will not be easy, because you've built habits around giving your attention to them, checking, hoping, wondering. But here's what's harder. Living a life where your peace is always in someone else's hands. Living like your worth is measured by someone who walked away. That's not strength, that's survival, and you were made for more than just surviving. You were made to stand tall in your silence. You were made to carry your value like armor. You were made to protect your energy like it's royalty, because it is. And the moment you believe that, the moment you truly see that your attention is a throne, not a toy, you will stop throwing it to the feet of people who didn't kneel for it. So let them wonder. Let them feel the difference. Let them sit in the space where your energy used to live, and as they scroll through empty silence, hoping to see you again, remember this: the man who no longer chases attention becomes the man who attracts it. If that hit you, my friend, if something inside just clicked, then I want you to write this in the comments right now. My attention is power. Show me. Show yourself. Show the world around you, because the one who protects his attention protects his peace, and the one who protects his peace becomes unstoppable. Stay untouchable. What's coming next will hit even deeper. Stay with me. 2. Why the ego craves a reaction and why your silence starves it. The one who angers you controls you. Epictetus. And it's not just anger, it's jealousy, it's confusion, it's longing, it's any reaction they can squeeze out of you, even the smallest flinch. Because here's the uncomfortable truth, my friends. The ego doesn't want love. It wants power. And if they can still make you react, they still have it. You've got to understand this. People who lose control over you don't immediately miss you. They miss the grip they had on your emotions. That sense of power when they could spark a response with one message, one emoji, one little breadcrumb dropped on your timeline like a baited hook. And the moment you respond, whether it's with sarcasm, anger, or desperate kindness, they know he's still dancing. But silence ruins everything for the ego. The ego wants proof. It needs evidence. It survives on reaction. But when you give them none, when your page goes still, when your name disappears from their notifications, when the game they thought they mastered turns into a black screen, they panic. Because now it's not about what you said. It's about what you didn't. Imagine their ego like a hungry beast. Every time you double-texted, it fed. Every time you watched their stories right away, it grew fatter. Every little response was a breadcrumb of control. And now that beast is starving. And the silence? That's not just the absence of sound. It's the absence of control. And nothing terrifies an insecure ego more than realizing it's no longer being fed. Let's be real. They never expected you to go quiet. They expected tears, rage, maybe a passive-aggressive post. They expected a man unraveling. But what they got was peace, stillness, a kind of emotional silence they can't decode. And now they're spiraling. Not because you're cruel, but because you've become unreadable. You're no longer on the grid, and that makes you a threat, a mystery, an unsolved equation. So they'll test you. Oh, they will. They'll try the subtle games, a vague quote posted to hint at regret, a random memory liked from months ago, a song lyric that was just a vibe, but somehow fits your situation a little too perfectly. But here's the trick. They're not reaching out to reconnect. They're reaching out to check their reflection, to see if the magic still works, to see if they can still push your buttons and get the lights to flicker. That's the moment where most men break. That little ping on the phone feels like hope. It feels like maybe they're waking up. Maybe they care again. But what you don't realize is that your reply doesn't say, "I care." It says, "You still have power." And once they know that, the game resets, and you're back in the loop, chasing, reacting, doubting, repeating. Silence breaks that loop completely. The most dangerous man in the room is not the one shouting, it's the one watching, calm, unmoved, unprovoked, because his peace can't be shaken. And that man, he doesn't react. He observes, he learns, and then he detaches without drama, without a scene, without needing applause. And that is what burns the ego most, not being fought, but being forgotten. Seneca once said, "He who is brave is free." And my friends, bravery isn't just about facing danger. It's about facing your own emotional triggers and refusing to let them own you anymore. That takes courage. That takes work. Because silence isn't always easy. It's a test, a battle. Your mind will scream. Your fingers will twitch. You'll want to say something, anything, just to feel like you're not invisible. But let me tell you what happens when you win that battle. They start seeing ghosts. They replay every moment. They question their own worth. Not because you punished them, but because for the first time you stopped giving them a mirror to feel good about themselves. You were their mirror, did you know that? Every compliment, every check-in, every validation. It wasn't just about you loving them. It was about them loving the reflection you gave back. But when you go quiet, that mirror cracks. And now they're left staring at themselves. And that's a sight many can't handle. So don't flinch, don't peek, don't post just for yourself when you know it's really for them. That's not peace, that's pretending, and pretending never heals. Real stillness, that heals, that transforms, that makes you untouchable. You want to become unforgettable. Don't react, don't explain, just rise. And when they finally realize they can't trigger you anymore, that your peace is not for sale, that their breadcrumb didn't earn even a glance, that's when they'll feel it. The ache, the confusion, the disempowerment, and the sad part. It's not even about you anymore. It's about what you've taken away, the supply, the spotlight, the stage. But your life isn't their stage anymore. So write this in the comments right now if you feel this in your bones. My silence is power. Say it for yourself. Say it for the man you're becoming. Say it so loud in your heart that the old version of you hears it, and finally lets go of the need to be understood by someone who never really saw you. Because what's coming next is even deeper. They felt your silence. Now wait until they feel your absence. Stay with me. 3. Emotional distance is louder than words. Absence sharpens love. Presence strengthens it. But what if it's not love you're dealing with? What if it was control all along? What if your presence wasn't feeding affection, it was fueling manipulation? My friends, emotional distance doesn't just create space, it creates clarity. And clarity, well, it's not always romantic. Sometimes it's terrifying. Let me paint it like this. Imagine you're in a room with constant noise, music playing, notifications buzzing, someone always talking at you. It becomes normal, expected, comfortable even. But suddenly, the noise stops. Complete silence. At first, you think something's broken. Then you start feeling the void, the pressure, the tension. That's what emotional distance does. It doesn't shout, it doesn't beg. It simply vanishes and leaves them alone with their own thoughts. That's when the unraveling begins. Because you used to be there, didn't you? Always emotionally available, checking in, explaining yourself, texting just to see if you're okay. You made sure they never had to feel the discomfort of silence. You filled every pause. You made yourself predictable, safe, constant. But now you've gone quiet, not just in words, but in energy. And let me tell you something most people don't want to admit. Your energy was the drug, your support, your concern, your emotional warmth. It wasn't always appreciated, but it was always consumed. And the moment you withdrew it, they didn't just lose your attention, they lost their fix. That's when it hits them, not when you posted a gym selfie, not when you went no contact for 48 hours and broke. It hits when they realize they no longer know where they stand with you. That's the crack in the ego, the confusion, the discomfort. Because your emotional distance doesn't just say, "I'm over it." It whispers something much more terrifying. You don't matter here anymore. And that makes them feel what they never wanted to feel: replaceable. See, when you used to send those long messages, when you used to open up every time they were distant, when you tried to solve problems they weren't even willing to talk about, that wasn't just you trying to fix things. That was you holding the rope for both of you, and they let you. But now the rope is gone. You dropped it, not in anger, but in evolution. And they feel that drop like a fall. They'll replay memories, reread old messages, maybe even reach out just to check in. But don't be fooled. That's not always love resurfacing. Sometimes it's just ego drowning. Because the ego needs to feel wanted. It needs reassurance. It needs access. And when it loses access, it scrambles. Not because it cares, but because it can't control. That's why your emotional distance is louder than any goodbye, louder than any closure conversation, because it's not dramatic, it's decisive. You're not asking to be understood anymore. You're not seeking fairness. You're not begging for decency. You're gone, not hiding, just moved. And that movement, that's what echoes. But here's where it gets tough, folks. There's going to be a voice in your head whispering, just check their page, just send a quick message, just get a little clarity. And that voice, that's the old version of you, the one who needed their response to feel worthy, the one who thought silence meant failure. But you're not him anymore. You're not surviving, you're building. And builders don't beg. Marcus Aurelius said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And emotional distance, that's the boundary that protects those thoughts. Because once you distance yourself from the noise, the chaos, the game, you start to see clearly again. You start to remember who you are, not who you were in their eyes, but who you are without their gaze. Let them feel it, not your pain, not your anger. Let them feel the absence, the space where you used to pour your soul. Let them notice the missing rhythm, the message that doesn't come, the support that's no longer there. Don't announce it, don't explain it, just withdraw, quietly, firmly, entirely. And when they try to provoke you, because they will, stay still. When they try to bait you, because they will, smile internally. When they try to make you doubt your growth, because they will, remember, distance doesn't lie. It reveals. It doesn't create confusion. It exposes it. So if you've felt that urge to reach out, pause, breathe. Remind yourself that your peace is not a public service. It's not something they're entitled to. It's earned. And if they lost access to it, that's not your loss. That's their consequence. If you feel that in your soul, I want you to comment right now. My distance speaks volumes. Let the world see it. Let yourself feel it. You're not cruel. You're clear. You're not cold. You're collected. You're not lost. You're liberated. And what comes next? Oh, it's even better, because silence is the start, but indifference, that's the revolution. Stay with me. 4. They expected a reaction. Give them stillness instead. They expect you to beg, to chase, to crack. But the moment you don't, you become unforgettable. Let's get something straight right now. Most people aren't looking for closure, they're looking for confirmation. They don't want to know if you're okay. They want to know if they still matter. They want to see if they can still tug at your emotions like they used to. That's the game, and the moment you stop playing, they lose their script. They expected the same old dance. They expected you to break character like you always did. One vague post, and they thought you'd slide back in with an "I've been thinking about you." One dry reply, and they thought it'd trigger the same old spiral. Late-night calls, long messages, emotional vulnerability they didn't earn. But this time, you gave them nothing, not even a ripple, just stillness. Stillness is power, folks. Don't confuse it with weakness. Stillness is what a mountain does when the storm is raging. It doesn't move. It doesn't scream. It stands. And people like them, they don't know what to do with that. Because most of their life has been built around reactions. Their worth has been tied to how much control they can get from others. But when you stop reacting, when you don't flinch, don't chase, don't explain, you make them face something they never prepared for: your peace. See, your reaction used to be their mirror. Your pain proved they mattered. Your frustration meant they still had a place in your heart. Your neediness, though it hurt you, was their ego's favorite lullaby. But now, when they provoke, and you give them silence, when they post, and you don't flinch, when they drop bait, and you don't bite, that's when the fear creeps in. The questions start echoing in their head. Did I lose him? Has he changed? Why is he not reacting? Who is he now? That silence becomes haunting. Your stillness becomes louder than 1,000 arguments. You're no longer trying to explain your worth. You're embodying it, quietly, elegantly, powerfully. And the best part? You didn't need to burn bridges. You just stopped walking across them. Look, people say they want peace, but what they really want is power dressed as peace. They want you calm, as long as they're still in control. But the moment your calm includes not needing them, the moment your peace becomes permanent instead of performative, that's when they start to panic. They thought you were like the others, emotional, predictable, easy to provoke. But now you're unreadable, not because you're hiding, but because you've risen above the level where their games even register. You're no longer a character in their drama. You've exited the theater, and they're left on stage talking to an empty chair. And I know, my friend, stillness feels strange at first. You'll want to reply. You'll want to post something deep just to show you're unbothered. But that's the trap. That's still reacting. That's still giving them space in your mind. Don't give them that. Give them emptiness, a void, a vacuum. Because a vacuum always demands to be filled, and when they try to fill it with answers and find only silence, that's when the real unraveling begins. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." You estimated them too highly for too long, and they assumed that estimation would last forever. But when you shift, when you finally realize you are the storm and the calm after it, they lose their grip. And here's the beauty of it all. You don't need to hate them. You don't need to get even. Your stillness is the closure. Your silence is the final sentence in the chapter, and the pages ahead. They don't even feature them anymore. They expected to be missed. Instead, they're forgotten. They expected to be chased. Instead, they're ignored. They expected you to perform. Instead, you've disappeared into your purpose. And if you're feeling that shift in your soul right now, if something in you is waking up and saying enough, then write this in the comments right now. I choose stillness. Not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you've finally realized that peace isn't something you ask for, it's something you become. Let them wonder, let them feel the weight of your quiet, let them face the question marks your silence leaves behind, because when you master the art of not reacting, you become the mystery they can't solve, and the man they can't reach. And what's next? Oh, it's even colder, because indifference isn't just distance, it's disconnection. Stay with me, we're only getting stronger. 5. You were never the pursuer, you were the supply. You don't chase love, you chase the feeling of being enough. And once you understand that, everything changes. See, they made you think you were the one doing the chasing, that you were running after something rare, that your energy, your effort, your attention were all attempts to win them. But here's the plot twist, my friend. You weren't chasing them at all. You were supplying them. They weren't the treasure. You were. They just convinced you otherwise. Let's break the illusion. You gave them your presence. You showed up. You checked in. You tried. And for a while, it felt like a fair exchange. But slowly, the scales tipped. You gave more. They expected more. You bled to keep the connection alive, and they just consumed it. No thank you, no reciprocation, just quiet entitlement. You weren't the pursuer, you were the fuel, the supplier, the source of comfort, validation, reassurance. And the moment you stopped supplying that energy, the moment you paused, suddenly they noticed, suddenly they missed you. Not because they loved you, but because their power supply got cut off. They never wanted you. They wanted the version of themselves that you reflected. You were their mirror. When they were feeling unsure, you gave them stability. When they were insecure, your attention made them feel wanted. When they were bored, you became their entertainment. And you, my friend, mistook all that consumption for connection. That's not love. That's emotional vampirism. They weren't connecting with you. They were feeding off you. And because you didn't see it clearly back then, you kept giving. You kept performing. You kept trying to be enough for someone who was using your presence to avoid themselves. But now you're waking up. And it's a harsh awakening. It hurts. Because the truth always does, but it also heals. Imagine a candle lighting up a dark room. At first, everyone gathers around it, thankful for the warmth. But as time passes, they stop noticing the light. They forget its value until the flame goes out. And suddenly, everyone feels the cold. You were the light. You were the one holding space, bringing energy, keeping things alive. And now that you're gone, they're not missing you. They're missing the warmth they took for granted. They'll say, "You changed." No, you didn't. You just stopped playing your role. You stopped being the supplier. You unplugged the cord. And without that supply, they're forced to feel their own emptiness, their own instability, their own need to be seen. You see, people don't mourn people. They mourn what people made them feel. And the truth is, you made them feel powerful, valuable, desired. And now that your energy isn't available on demand, they feel the withdrawal. They feel the lack. And it stings, not because they lost you, but because they lost the version of themselves you were reflecting back. This is why your silence is so loud. It isn't just quiet, it's absence. Absence of praise, absence of energy, absence of emotional supply. And when that silence stretches into stillness, into distance, into detachment, they're left facing a reality they tried so hard to avoid. You were the giver, and now you're gone. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Real power in relationships works the same way. When you want less, when you need less, when you stop supplying someone who was never grateful to begin with, that's when you truly become rich. emotionally rich, spiritually rich, untouchable. But let's be honest, it's not easy to stop supplying. It feels like quitting. It feels like abandoning the dream of what could have been. You still remember the good moments, the connection, the potential. But ask yourself this, was it really connection, or were you just useful? Were you really valued, or were you just convenient? You're not supposed to be someone's escape from boredom. You're not supposed to be the emotional life jacket for someone who never learned to swim. You're not the backup generator for people who can't power themselves. You're a whole damn power plant, and it's time you started treating yourself like one. So what now? Now you shift. You stop giving to those who only know how to take. You redirect your energy inward, into your craft, your purpose, your peace. You stop being someone's emotional currency and start becoming your own source of wealth. And when they reach back out, and trust me, they will, it won't be out of love. It'll be out of starvation. The supply is gone, the mirror is gone, and they want it back. But you've outgrown that role. You've become the man who no longer gives to feel needed. You give only to those who are already full within themselves, who respect the energy you bring, who match it. If this woke something up inside you, write it in the comments right now. I was the supply. Say it loud. Say it clear. Show yourself. Show the world around you that you finally get it. Because now you supply only one person, yourself. And what's next? Oh, it gets colder. You thought silence was loud. Wait till you see what happens when you let them feel the void and never refill it. Stay with me. 6. Let them feel the void. You're not their fix anymore. You don't heal by going back to what broke you. And you sure as hell don't grow by being someone's emotional dealer when they only come around to get high off your presence. Let's be real, your presence used to be their fix. Your attention was a drug, your validation a dopamine hit. Every time you replied fast, every time you liked their story, every time you poured out your heart in late-night messages, they got a hit, a surge, a rush that screamed, I still matter to him. But now the line's been cut. The connection is gone. You went silent. And now they're going through emotional withdrawal, whether they admit it or not. The truth is, they were never addicted to love. They were addicted to access, and you made it too easy. You were the outlet they could plug into whenever their ego felt low, whenever life got boring, whenever they needed to be reminded that someone, somewhere, was still orbiting around them. You were always there, ready with a response, ready with a compliment, ready with the emotional backup they never deserved. And now, you're unavailable, emotionally closed for business, and they can feel that void like a punch in the chest. See, you were never supposed to be their therapist, their safety net, their emotional vending machine. That's the lie they sold you. That's the role you stepped into, thinking it would lead to love. But love doesn't demand you self-destruct just to keep someone else emotionally stable. Love doesn't look like begging for crumbs while someone else feasts off your vulnerability. That's not love. That's a transaction built on imbalance. And you finally walked out of the deal, and now they feel it. Not right away, of course. At first they act cool, like your silence doesn't matter. They'll post more, laugh louder, act unbothered. But deep down, the ego's already pacing, wondering, why hasn't he reached out? Why isn't he watching my stories? Did he really move on? The attention they used to take for granted has gone missing, and that void, it gets louder by the hour. People don't value what's always there. They value what they have to earn, what they could lose. And now that they've lost access to you, their reality is starting to shift. Your silence is echoing in places your words never could. Because now it's not about what you said, it's about what you withheld. You see, folks, when someone's used to being fed by your energy, your silence doesn't just confuse them, it starves them. And the best part? You don't have to do anything. That's the beauty of it. You don't have to prove you've changed. You don't have to show you're doing better. You just remove the supply. You walk away, quietly, intentionally, and that void does all the talking. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy, so don't get petty. Don't try to match their games. That's not your path. Your path is power through absence, not because you're bitter, but because you've outgrown the dynamic. You've outgrown needing to be someone's emotional support when they never once returned the favor. Let them feel it. Let them sit in the stillness that replaced your constant reassurance. Let them scroll through their phone, hoping for a notification that never comes. Let them remember what it felt like to be desired by someone who now no longer needs them. And when they try to bait you, because they will, don't bite, don't nibble, don't even flinch. You're not their emotional supplier anymore. They can go find someone else to perform for. This is where your discipline gets tested, because the old version of you, he would have cracked. He would have responded to that hey with open arms. He would have explained himself just to feel seen. But that man is gone. He's buried under the silence you chose, under the void you finally allowed to exist, not as a punishment, but as a boundary. And let me tell you something powerful. Voids aren't empty. They're full of potential. That space you created, that's where your self-respect is growing. That's where your standards are rising. That's where your new life is being built, not with words, but with absence. Not with performance, but with power. So if you feel this in your bones right now, if you're finally seeing the value of the void you've created, type this in the comments. I am no longer their fix. Say it loud. Say it for the part of you that always felt like you had to earn love by staying available. Say it for the man who's tired of being drained just to keep someone else comfortable. Because this is your season of silence, of stillness, of sovereignty. Let the void do its work, and when they finally realize they can't get high off your energy anymore, they'll feel it, not because you made them, but because they did it to themselves. And what's coming next? Oh, my friends, it's not just distance, it's detachment, where even their presence can't reach you anymore. Stay with me, you're just getting started. 7. Real power isn't shown, it's withheld. Power is not proven by how loud you are, it's revealed by how little you need to speak. And in your silence, my friend, you've said more than any message ever could. Let me tell you something most men never realize. You don't need to prove power, you preserve it. True power is quiet, calm, untouchable. It's not in posting cryptic quotes. It's not in showing off new people, new places, or fake progress just to get their attention. That's noise. That's performance. That's the energy of a man still trying to be seen by someone who stopped looking. But the man who doesn't need to be seen, that man becomes unforgettable. Because here's the truth, they expected you to break. They expected to hear from you again, maybe not right away, but eventually. They thought you'd circle back around, say something, do something, anything, to remind them that they still mattered to you, that they still had a piece of you. They expected your silence to be a strategy. They thought it was just a pause before the next performance. But it wasn't. You weren't waiting, you were withdrawing. Not because you wanted them to chase, but because you finally stopped. See, most people think power is in reaction. They think strength is in what you show. But real power, it's in what you don't. It's in the messages you don't send, the stories you don't check, the posts you don't make. It's in the moments where you could break character and don't, where you could respond and choose stillness, where you could remind them of who you were and instead quietly become someone new. And that's what haunts them now, not what you did, but what you didn't. You didn't come running. You didn't try to prove yourself. You didn't ask to be understood. And that absence, that's louder than any closure conversation. That's more powerful than any well-worded goodbye. You didn't raise your voice. You raised your standards. You didn't try to win them back. You won yourself back. And now they don't know who you are anymore, because the man they knew, the one who reacted, who reached, who waited, is gone. And what's left in his place? A mystery. A man who holds his power like a sword in its sheath. Sharp, precise, and dangerous in his silence. This is the shift. The silent rebirth. The moment where you don't just ignore them, you outgrow them, quietly, fully, without the need for applause. You don't explain your progress anymore. You don't show your healing like a trophy. You let your stillness speak, and it does, loudly. And listen, I know the temptation. I know the voice in your head still says, let them see, let them know what they lost. But let me be honest with you, that voice is old. That's the ghost of the boy who needed validation to feel whole. But you're not that boy anymore. You're a man now, a man who doesn't need to be noticed to feel worthy, a man who doesn't prove power. He withholds it, because the strongest men don't announce the comeback. They become it. You've walked through the fire, you've sat in the silence, you've withheld the messages, you've faced the pull of the past and didn't break. That is power, that is presence, that is proof, not that you've moved on, but that you've elevated. So let them feel the silence, let them live in the void you left behind. Don't try to control how they remember you. Let the unanswered questions haunt them. Let the stillness echo through their ego. You don't need revenge. You don't need validation. You need nothing, because you've become everything you were seeking in them. And if that resonates with you, if you feel the shift, if you've tasted the power of withholding instead of reacting, then write this in the comments right now. I don't show power. I am power. Let the world see it. Let your future self feel it. Let your old self witness the evolution. And if you're ready to rise in silence, ready to stop chasing and start becoming, ready to leave behind performance and step into true presence, then hit that like button, subscribe to Powerful Stoic Habits, and join a movement of men who don't flinch, don't chase, and don't fold. Because around here, we don't prove anything. We just become. Stay focused, stay grounded, and above all, stay untouchable.